In this video, we'll talk about the array list collection. If you haven't done so already, I'd strongly encourage you to take a look at video 2030, Intro to Collections, for a lot of the introductory material on this topic. So to begin, I've got a simple Visual Basic console application created called ArrayList VB. And in the submain, I'm just going to paste in some code I've created, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. I'm also going to need to paste a little bit more code. So we'll put some down here underneath the end sub. So I basically have created my car object like I had from the previous video. And here we're going to use that car object. Now, before we talked about in the introductory lessons about things that make the different collections different. And one of the things about the array list that was much different than the array was that it allows a little bit more flexibility in terms of its ability to expand in size dynamically as needed, and then also we talked about it being a little more flexible in terms of what types of objects that can be placed into it. We can put multiple objects that are of different types even into the exact same array list. So the other thing that I want to note is, that's highlighted in this section, is that we're not going to take a look at everything that was in the array list that was already in the array, and those are things like clear, reverse, index of, last index of, count, clone, and get type, because we've already talked about these things and they're really not that much different in the array list. So without further ado, let's move on in and take a look. What we've done is created 3 car objects. A Dodge Viper, Jaguar XJ8, and the Mercedes, the new SL55. And we're going to add each of those items to our array list. So up to this point, there's really nothing new. We've just created a new instance of an array list, and we've created its initial size equal to 5. Now, I referenced this at the very top of the code example about the elasticity of the array list. And although we have 5, we could have set this to 500 in anticipation of a lot of car objects. And then once we have all of the car objects we need, we can trim it down and reallocate its size and its memory usage back to the CLR, so we're not using more than we should. We're good citizens within the sandbox. And we're given a couple of tools to use in order to manage the size and that we're currently using, and those are things like capacity and trim to size. So in this case, what I've done is displayed the initial capacity, then used the trim to size method, and what this will do is get rid of any unused array list elements, so that if we did, for example, have 500 here and we allocated all this memory to 500 items but never used them, it would reallocate all that memory back into the memory manager. And then we print out the capacity once again. So let's go ahead and save this and build this. And I'm going to bring up my command window and run array list VB, the name of my project. And when I do, notice that the number of objects that the array list can hold is 5. And then after we've used the trim, we see that there's only 3 objects in the array list. The next part of code that I'm going to paste in here, we're going to show 2 different things. First of all, how to display a single item. It's done much in the same way as we did the array. I just use a different notation here where I use item and then sub1 model. So I'm going to display the second car. The second one is 1 because we go 0, 1, 2. And I print out the make, the model, and the year. So that's how we display a single item within our array list. And the second section of code checks for the existence of a specific car within our collection. Here we display the count of cars, and then I'm going to use the contains method and pass in a specific instance of the car object that we created way up here, dimcar3 as the new Mercedes, right? And we're going to determine whether or not it exists by saving it into this bExists. So then we'll write out the car was found in the array, true or false. Let's go ahead and save this and build a solution and then run it again. Notice this time that we have some new information here. The second car is a Jaguar XJ8. That the number of cars is 3, and then were we able to find our car 3? Yes. Yes, we were. I think I may have misspoke a little bit earlier. Sorry for the confusion. I looked at number 2 as the second car, but the second car was actually 1, and that's why we found the Jaguar there. So let's go ahead and minimize that and continue on. What we'll do this time is we'll paste some code in here to remove an object from the collection. This time we'll remove car 3, and then we'll use the contains to find out if it exists. Then we'll print out the number of cars again, and we'll print out whether we were able to find it. So this really exercises the remove method. So let's go ahead and build solution and then run it again. And we want to pay a special attention to this. The number of cars after car 3 is removed 2. The car was found in the array, false. So it wasn't able to find it this time because we deleted it. So now what we're going to do is use 2 more methods and 2 properties. We're going to use the fixed size and the read-only methods to return a wrapper object, and that wrapper object will contain a copy of our array list, but it'll be a specific copy that will, in this case, not allow any new ones to be added, new elements, new cars to be added to our collection, and this will version will return a version of our array list that is read-only. We can't add and we can't write to or change any of the values of those objects. So notice what happens. We use a static version of the array list, and we call the fixed size method, and we pass in an instance of our array list, and that returns back an array list that we're going to create called fixed cars. So then we're going to check, is fixed cars fixed size? And the answer should be true, in which case it'll write out the line fixed cars is fixed in size. And the same is true for the read-only. Here we use the static version of the array list, use the read-only property, which creates a wrapper around our cars array list, returns it back to an identifier called read-only cars. We check the property is read-only on our read-only cars object, in which case it should print out this to the window. So let's go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead and build solution. Pull this open again, and notice that indeed the fixed cars is fixed in size and the read-only cars is read-only. So this is helpful if you wanted to expose a copy of your array through a property within your class, and you just want to give somebody access to the values inside of the array without allowing them to change it or add anything else to it. So it gives you some control over how you expose your array list to the world and what other methods and classes within your application or calling applications are able to do with it. The next thing I'm going to show you is how to use the toArray method of your array list, which allows you to take an array list and convert it to an array. Essentially, it's creating a copy of the array list, much in the same way as we just did a moment ago. Except instead of creating a wrapper, you're actually creating a brand new object. So the changes you make to, in this case, a new array called autos will not be propagated to your cars collection. So in this case, we're creating a new autos, and we're sizing it initially to the size of our cars collection. Now notice that I can't make the array strongly typed. I have to make it as object. Unfortunately, the toArray only returns back an object type. So cars.toArray, and we're setting that to the identifier autos, and then we're just going to loop through each of the cars just to show you that autos indeed does have all of the items that cars did. Now let me say this. I'm not sure why you would ever need to do this. I mean, array and array list are so similar that I'm not sure what the benefit here is, but you're definitely given the opportunity to copy those objects into a much more stringent type of collection if you choose to. So let's go ahead and save this, build it, and run it again. And notice at the very bottom that we have car in the array is Dodge and Jaguar. Of course, we deleted one of our Mercedes in a previous example, so there's only 2 in there. Now the last thing that I want to demonstrate is how to add 2 different types into the same array list. And so what I'm going to do is add another class. We had car, and I'm going to add truck. And the only thing that's really different is that truck has a new field called towing capacity, and therefore has something called X towing capacity as an input parameter to the constructor. Let's go ahead and save that. Then what I want to do is add some more code. Just paste some in here that I'm copying from a text file. And what this will do is allow us to exercise this. And as the note says, array lists provide more flexibility, allowing different types to be added to the same structure. The caveat to that is, yes, you can do this with an array, but you have to type the array as an object. So here's what we've done. We create a new array list, and we start adding in some of our, for example, our car1 that we created very early in our example all the way at the top here. Car1, which is a Dodge Viper. So let's scroll back down. Then I'm going to add to that exact same array list a truck, a new truck. That's a Ford F10 pickup, 2002, and the towing capacity of 15. I guess that would be tons. I'm not really a truck guy, so I don't know these things. But at any rate, what we've done is create a generic object called vehicle and dimension that as an object so that when we loop through each of the items within our AR list, we can reference the O vehicle. What I do inside here is up to me. However, for the purpose of this example, I've created oVehicle.getType.name, so I'm going to find out what type it is, and based on the type, I'm going to print out either car or truck. So let's go ahead and save this, build it, and then let's run it. Now notice at the very end how we have car and truck, showing us that our example did work correctly. So that's pretty neat. The array list allows us to add different types, and that we are free then to evaluate each of those types as we wish, each of the objects in that array list as we wish based on their type. So that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Hope you enjoyed it and you learned a little bit more about array lists and their benefit over arrays. Thank you.